Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education, a podcast that focuses on what is happening in education today, connecting everyone to the movers and shakers that are breaking boundaries in the education arena.
Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education. So, Jerri, this is the beginning of September. So most schools around the world have either recently started school or are just getting started now. So that means teachers around the world are working very diligently to inspire students, to motivate them to become creative, to make their mark. And we have the king of inspiration here with us today. And I am so excited. I've been bragging about this.
Oh, absolutely. Jamie, I have to say, the first time I met our guest, Peter Reynolds, I was with you and your husband, and Peter's brother was with him, Paul, and we were in New Orleans, and your husband was absolutely stargazed over. He couldn't believe he was meeting Peter Reynolds, the author of The Dot and the inspiration for International Dot Day.
Yep.
So Peter, we are so happy to have you here on the show. And one of the favorite things about meeting you was hearing the story about you and your brother's birth. Do you mind starting out with that? I love that story.
Well, first, thank you so much for inviting me to be part of the fun today. And, we're to share, my joy and my passion for learning and creativity, which is what it's all about. And I love your outfits, by the way. I love all those dots. Awesome.
Yes.
We understood the assignment.
Yeah.
We did.
And I am surrounded by dots here in my studio. Well, my studio is right next door, but this is headquarters for my not-for-profit that my twin brother and I started called Reynolds TLC, Teaching, Learning, and Creativity. And sort of conveniently also says TLC, which is something that we think teachers need more of, is TLC. We got to take care of our teachers. They're an amazing force of good, and we need to respond in the same way that they love their kids. We got to love our teachers and take good care of them. We cannot let them burn out. And so today we're dedicating this to them and all the informal educators out there too who are taking good care of kids. So super excited to connect the dots with you and to share what we've been doing, what we're doing, all the amazing things that are happening. It's awesome.
Absolutely. And I know teachers love that behind the scene thing. That's why I wanted you to start a little bit about the story of you and your twin brother.
Right. Yes.
Because they're going to love that. Just that little thing they could share with their class.
Yes. Sorry about that. Paul was off. I got my twin brother off to the side here, and I may actually pull him.
Bring him in.
We need to see him.
I'll pull here, Paul. This is Paul. I'm just going to say hi.
Hello.
Paul.
A little bit. Good to connect with all of you. Beard?
You're
No
awesome.
beard. Yes. Peter, Paul. And so Paul is
And
my
I'm
big
Jerri.
brother. 14
Peter,
minutes.
Paul, and Jerri.
Wait, big brother for how long?
14 minutes.
14 minutes. I've been breathing air longer than him. So
I was taking my time. So I let Paul do the recon, and I
do all the advanced work. And then so Peter can
You laid out the red carpet.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to be over here in case
Okay.
Peter needs me
Working
and
away.
taking care of some things, but I'm here. And
Thank you.
supporting back
Yes.
in.
Great
But,
to see you.
So Paul and I, we started the journey as one dot, and we became two dots. And my mother, Hazel, who's still with us, amazing Hazel Reynolds. Hello, Hazel. If you're
Hello,
watching.
Hazel.
We love you, Hazel. You're the most amazing human being. She loves books. She's creative. She's civically engaged. She's from England. She survived World War II as a little girl, and her resilience and her storytelling really inspired both Paul and myself. So she had left England after the war. The London was kind of repairing itself, and they heard good things about Canada. So mom and dad and Jane and Andrew, brother and sister, moved to Canada. And my mother she realized she was pregnant. She did not realize that she was having 2 children. My big sister, Jane, who is probably watching from England. Hello, Jane. And my sister, Renee. Hello, Renee. Jane was hoping, she was praying that she would have a baby sister.
Of course.
And little did she know that on March 16th, 1961, that she would be given 2 brothers. So she eventually got over it, like about 15, 16 years. She was like pretty good with it.
Not having it.
Yeah, she still has a little, she probably still has a little grudge. But yeah, mom didn't realize she was having twins. A month before, she went to the doctor, and apparently they discovered she was having twins. So she told everybody she was having twins. They had a little party and made her a crown, and they were making a big fuss of her. And then as the story goes, she started laughing, and then she went into labor. And Paul and I arrived a month early, so yeah.
Well,
so
in time for the party.
Yeah. So mark in your calendar. Paul's birthday is March 16th. All right. So don't forget Paul's birthday. I was telling people that.
March 16th.
Yes. March 16th. Almost St. Patty's Day.
Yeah. But I like to say that I was born with my best friend.
Oh.
And Paul and I, we feel blessed that we have each other. And I think that's another one of our themes is that, the journey is difficult, but it's less difficult if you find your twin or your best friend or your partner. It doesn't have to be your romantic partner. It could be your work partner. It could be your spiritual partner, and it could also be a partner that the partner might not even know that you exist, right? It could be a mentor, someone that you look up to and you read their work or you listen to their music and they inspire you, that your dots are sort of cosmically connected. So there's so many ways to be a twin on this amazing planet of ours.
I love that. I just think, and I know, Paul is busy working right now because we have upon us in 2 weeks, International Dot Day. You wrote the book, and I want to hear the story of, why you wrote the book. What was the inspiration for the book? Did you know it was going to be such a phenomenon, and how that phenomenon started?
Yeah, well, I had no idea that it would become what it has become. Here we are 20 years later. So September 15th is going to mark the beginning of its 20th year. And so next year will be 2023. So it came out in 2003. And so all year long, we'll be celebrating, of course. This dot day is going to be amazing. Next dot day will be even more amazing because it'll be the official end of the 20th year. And but yeah, I had no idea, but I did know that it was very core to what I believe and my mission in life, which is, I personally want to activate my true potential. Like while I'm here, we're not given long enough to be on this planet. I wanted to have the most amazing journey, and I wish that for everybody. And when I look at people who are unhappy and they're bored, or they have a job they don't like, or there's a kid who finds school excruciatingly boring, that's a problem. That's a problem because we're wasting precious moments on this planet. And so when I hear people say, I can't, I'm not an artist. Like, I think, well, then you don't really, you haven't spent long enough to understand, what is art, right? Art is, I have something in my head, my heart, my dreams, and I'm going to document it in some way.
That's simple. Yeah, you're right.
It could be performance art. It could be drawing. It could be photography. It could be quilting. There's lots of ways of documenting, right? And leaving your mark, right? Making your mark means to leave something behind. It could be planting a tree, right? That's making your mark. And there are lots of different ways to do that. And I met a little girl. She was in first grade. I was I had a little workshop, and I was getting kids just to relax, draw what you want to draw your favorite thing. If it's a flower or a rocket ship, it doesn't matter. Just draw. The little girl was drawing, and I went over to her to look at her work, and she threw her body on top of her artwork. She would not let me see what she was drawing, and I thought she was kidding at first. And then I realized she was serious, and I said, what's wrong? And she looked at me and she said, I just can't draw. And that really broke my heart, because I'm thinking she's in first grade and she's saying she can't draw.
Can't draw the angst that she has. Yeah.
Yeah. And so and then I was thinking, well, what messages was she getting? Who may have said the wrong thing, or some, I just say that we're clumsy humans, right? I wish we were all more enlightened, but so I said to myself, I am going to write a story for that little girl, because I know if that little girl's struggling, there's probably another little girl and a boy and another boy. And then as it turns out, the more I thought about it, adults also have that same struggle. We're afraid to put ourselves out there. We're afraid, we're not doing it right. So do you know what? I'm just not going to do it. Which
Paralyzed by fear, right? And that gets us nowhere. Yep.
So true. So true.
Did you write it for her then, more or less? Yeah.
Well, she was definitely an inspiration, and there were two other sort of inspiration points. One is that I fell asleep in bed with my journal, and my marker was actually on the page when I fell asleep. And when I woke up in the middle of the night, there was this big black dot on the page. And of course, at 2:00 in the morning, I thought it was a mistake. When I woke up in the morning and I looked at my journal again, I saw this big bold black dot, and I thought, that's actually a pretty cool looking dot. And I picked up the pen and I wrote "The Dot" by Peter H. Reynolds.
Oh my gosh.
And I thought, well, that's, it's really perception, right? Like you could either say this is horrible, or you could say, hey, that's interesting. Right.
Right.
And great teachers know, and great parents know, that language is powerful, and the way we say things, right? We can be clumsy about our language, or we can be constructive. We can be inspiring about our language, right? Rather than say, what is that to a child? You say, tell me about your drawing. Because they know what it is, and they've got this amazing story. But if you're like, oh, is that a dog? And they're looking at you like, well, that was a rocket ship and, a wedding on another planet. So then the other touch point was I was in a cafe and I was drawing, and a little girl came up to me, and she had this big mop of hair and beautiful brown skin and big brown eyes. And she just stood there and she was waiting. And I looked up at her and she said, who is that drawing for? And I thought, well, I think she wants it. So I said, it's for you. And she said, really? And I said, yeah, it's for you. I said, how do you spell your name? And she said, Vashti. And I said, Vashti? And she said, yeah, Vashti. I said, well, that's a really beautiful name. I said, I've never met a Vashti before. And I'm looking for a name for my character for my book.
Oh my
and
God.
I use your name. And I told her, I said, I can't promise you, but I'm going to try it out. So I went home and I tried it out. Vashti sat glued to her chair. Her paper was empty. And I thought, there's no other name. This character is Vashti. And so that little girl, I have not seen her since then, which that would have been 21 years ago. So out there, I'm going to guess she's 30,
Yeah.
probably around 30 years old. So if anyone knows a 30-year-old Vashti, please tell her I said hello, and I would love to reconnect the dots. So hopefully she still has the little drawing I made for her.
Oh my gosh. That is incredible. So many dots that were connected to have this,
right?
This book born, right?
Yeah, right. It's all of this inspiration. I always say, right, like I have story radar, and I'm picking up stories all the time. And it's
right.
Also, I have name radar. Like, if I hear a good name and I'm like, oh, that I can even picture a character based on the name. And unfortunately, I try to write my ideas down. I encourage everyone listening, do not forget your brilliant ideas. I think it's one of the tragedies is that, if you're riding up your bicycle and you're like, when I get home, I'm going to write that idea down. And I don't know if you had that experience when you're like, oh, great idea.
All the time.
You finally get a chance to write it down and you're like, no clue. I can't remember what it was. And you're like, I know it was brilliant. I just have no proof of that.
Well, they either happen in the shower, or in your case, they happen at 2:00 in the morning when you're sleeping and you didn't even know. Yet that idea just you woke up to.
It happens all the time. And fortunately, like I was swimming yesterday and I was doing my laps and this idea came to me. And fortunately, I have my iPhone and I still remembered the idea as I was drying off, and I actually I sent a message to my twin brother, Paul. And again, having that twin and having that sounding board, someone to bounce ideas off of, because then Paul, what I'll do is I'll call Paul, hey, I have this idea, blah, 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 blah. Then he writes it down and he sends it back to me. So it's documented. So it's like, oh yeah, I have this idea. Like this particular idea was inspired by my book, The Word Collector. I'm a big fan of words, by the way. So I wrote a celebration of words, the joy of words, called The Word Collector, and then there's a sequel called Say Something, which is my other mission is to say, yes, make your mark, but think about how we can change the world. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to activate people's not only their creativity, right, but their civic energy to say, you can use that art, the photography, your dance, your ability to be, funny. You could channel that and make this world a better place. And we have these essentials in life that they should be essential, and there are people not getting them, like water, right?
Yeah.
A bed to sleep in, a roof over your head, health, education, and there are people not getting those things, and those are essential. And in this country, we're innovators, right? We're supposed to be leaders in innovation. So we have to think outside of the box. And so I like to just mention that because, the dot is certainly a celebration of art and creativity. But it's creativity in service to positive change, right?
Yes.
So purposeful creativity. And that's why I like the phrase, right, make your mark. So that Vashti's teacher says, make your mark and see where it takes you. Because you also don't even know like what the master plan is, right? And if you ask anyone who's done amazing things that change the world, it just starts with like one conversation. They didn't realize like where it would go. Like this book, The Dot. I just wrote, I had little note cards from CVS, and I had a little movie in my head, and I just sketch noted this movie, and I had a little stack of cards, and I showed it to my literary agent, Holly McGee, who's one of the most amazing human beings on the planet. Pippin Properties is my agency. And she read through the little cards, and she said, this is a book, and we must share it with the world. So I encourage everybody out there, if you have that little spark, that little inspiration, don't lose it. Write it down, speak it, tell someone, right, so that you don't forget. And then just keep it rolling along. And it's like, right, the snowball down the hill, and it will, it'll pick up speed. It may take 20 years but here we are 20 years later. and this big dot is still rolling, and it's rolling around the world. I was shown to show our
so around the world, so global, so all different languages.
Yeah, I've got the dot in many languages. Our people watching and I'm just showing my people listening. I'm showing the covers of my books from around the world, and there's Korean. Not quite sure which. That might be Portuguese. I'm not sure. German, Chinese, Greek, Italian. I think this is Korean. The Korean dot. Isn't it beautiful? I love their.
It is, and it has a couple dots in it.
It does actually. Yeah, right. Look at that. There's a dot reverse, right? A reverse dot.
Right.
So
Dot Day.
Yeah, this is rolling around the world.
around the world then? It's celebrated everywhere?
International.
Yeah, there is international. Yeah, we say international for a reason. It didn't start that way. It started in a classroom in Iowa. Terry Shea, we had connected the dots through my work, and I realized that he's an amazing human being. And we started chatting, and we were talking about the importance of creativity and how schools really should celebrate creativity. That there really wasn't a day to honor creativity. So he's like, "Hey, let's start a celebration." So he suggested Dot Day, and his kids celebrated with drawing dots and creating frames in a gallery, and they had dot food and dot clothing. And then the word got out. The next year, a couple of hundred people joined, teachers, and then thousands, and then tens of thousands. I think we've had, as of today, how many, Paul? 24 million participants around the world in over 190 countries and sovereign territories. Makes that list even longer. So it's spread around the world. The book is translated in many languages, and there's also a film version of the book, and narrated beautifully by Thora Birch, a wonderful actress. And then as we speak, there's a TheaterWorks USA in New York City is finishing up the production of a musical based on the dot. Yeah.
What?
It's going to be, and the musical is called Dot, Dot, Dot.
Oh my gosh.
And it's got three dot stories. It's got the dot, it's got Ish, which is that little boy from the end of the dot. He makes an appearance in Ish. So Ish is his story. And then he has a little sister named Marisol, and she gets her own story called Sky Color. And so Sam Salmond and Keela Gibson, they wrote and composed this amazing musical that Paul and I got a chance to go to New York City. We saw rehearsals, and the music is really amazing. It's really it's a show for anybody. It's not like a kid show. It's a show for everybody. It's very, very moving and inspirational. We wept during the show, and we laughed. It's quite lovely. So that'll be touring starting spring of 2023, and it will tour probably 2 years and then end up back in New York City. So hopefully it'll come to a city near you.
Wow, that was incredible. I'm right near New York City. I'm in New Jersey, so I can catch the beginning and the end.
I will definitely. I'll be there for the first week.
Oh my goodness!
It'll start in New York City, so we'll let you know, and I'll save you a seat in the balcony. How's that?
Woo! I love it. I'll be there. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. So
Peter, talk about
incredible. It really is incredible. It really is.
If our listeners and watchers want to see a world premiere sneak preview of the musical, tune in September 15th. Microsoft Flip is helping us do a live stream from a very cool location in New York City. We were wondering, where's a good spot for us to do a live show? So we chose the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
Oh, love it.
They were super excited. I've done a few things with them before, but they're like, hey, we have a theater, and so we could have a live audience. We have a stage. We've got a big screen, and so we'll be there'll be an audience, but people around the world will be tuning in to that event, and we'll have a piece of the musical. The performers will be on stage performing, and we'll have someone playing piano, and so you'll get to hear the musical before anybody else. So
wow.
Where should we go? Yes, 1:00 Eastern. And is there a website or just Microsoft?
Yeah. No, there's a website, Paul Reynolds, AKA. It's called AKA.ms slash dot day. AKA dot MS
MS
slash dot day.
All right, perfect.
So information about the event will be there, and you can sign up to get tickets. There are a limited number of tickets if you happen to be near New York City. And or you can tune in from your living room, your classroom. And for people around the world, they'll probably be in bed watching this on the other side of the planet. But it's going to be a lot of fun. My twin brother, Paul, will be co-host, and we'll have some other special guests. And we'll actually be beaming in some messages from around the planet, kids from around the world celebrating creativity, showing how they're making their mark.
This is amazing. This is amazing. And so I was thinking, oh gosh, I'll go up there on the next on the 15th, but I'll actually be in Atlanta, where my daughter is making her mark at Georgia Tech. She is it's Parents Weekend, and she's actually in industrial design, and she's sort of said the same thing like you did. As you said, and as the book goes, I can't draw. I'm not sure if this is going to be good for me. I'm not good at drawing, and that's not what it's about. And they always make connections. Whatever your creative solution is, it has to make a mark in the world, and you have to connect to, be civic minded in it. So it's everything that you're saying, which I think is so important.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting for me to see, kids telling us who they are. Like, I think that's the most important question we can ask our kids, because we ask them a lot of questions, right, about chemistry and history, and but the one question we don't ask enough is, who are you, right?
Yeah.
There's who are you, and then also who are you becoming, and there's also who would you like to be, right? And therefore, I wrote a story called The North Star, which really gets people thinking about this idea that every one of us has a unique journey. Even twins, identical twins, have unique journeys. We all have different stars, right? Different constellations. And I ask people to think about each star, that each star is something you're good at. There's a dream, a book that inspires you, a teacher who inspired you, a person who is your mentor. And imagine that as a constellation. And you can keep adding to it as time goes on. And the more you get to know yourself, right, you can add more stars. But if you show your star map to a teacher can say, wow, you like motorcycles? I could teach you to read, write, and problem solve just using motorcycles. So I'm a big fan of interest-based education, right? Find out what your spark is, and then just our job is to, fan those embers and say, hey, did you know there's a course you could take, or there's someone locally who specializes in what your interest is? And so you can do that dot connection. And great teachers know how to dot connect. My life was changed by a teacher who dot connected. That's another story. But
she was able to elicit your interests, I guess, and let you flourish.
Right. Right. When you notice, if you take the time to notice what kids' spark is, the quick version of this is that my math teacher in 7th grade noticed I love to draw. And he thought, wouldn't it be great if Peter loved paying attention in math class as much as he liked to draw? And he offered me to do a special project. He said, do you think you can teach math using your art and your storytelling? And so I'm like, well, that sounds interesting. I went home, I created a comic book to teach math. I brought it back in, showed Mr. Mattson. He looked at it and he said, do you know what you've done? And I said, I made a comic book. He said, well, it's also called a storyboard. And it's what a filmmaker uses to plan out a film. How would you like to make an animated film? And so, of course, I'm like, yes, sounds good. Sign me up. And he said, I don't know how to make one, which was kind of cool because it was one of the first teachers, right, an adult who said they didn't know something, right? And then so he said, I know a teacher at the high school who's a filmmaker, an animator, super creative guy. And so he dot connected, right? He connected me to that media teacher, and he was involved too. So it was like the three of us, and he came from the high school down to the junior high school, and he taught both of us how to make an animated film. So at age 12, I made my very first animated film to teach math. Mr. Mattson had done something very cool. He connected, right, art and storytelling and teaching and imagination all together. And then he also, when I reflect back on it, he really did the most powerful thing that any of us can do for a child. He noticed me.
Yes.
Right? Out of that big sea of kids that he had to teach, he noticed me, and he took the time to have a conversation. It wasn't a long conversation, but it was just enough to, fan those embers. Peter likes to draw. He's got an imagination. Now what are we going to do with it? And again, that's right, purposeful creativity. He asked me to teach. And that was pretty cool looking back at it. Like, my teacher asked me to teach. And I also noticed, went looking back, that he learned how to animate with me. So he became a student. So I was a teacher. He's the teacher, right? It's a really cool mix. And, but I do credit him, and I dedicated the book, The Dot, to Mr. Matson. A thank you for changing my life.
I mean, it's the epitome of personalized learning. We need to take that time to get to know our students, to find out what interests them, what makes them motivated, and allow a learning path, a journey for them that incorporates that. And that just builds that purpose and allows them to grow even more. I mean, that story is it. I mean, that's what we need to do. And we feel, you mentioned in the beginning, teachers, we need that. And, well, actually, I wanted you to also mention your nonprofit. It's called TLC, because teachers, students, we all need that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. ReynoldsTLC.org. You can check it out and see what we're up to, what we've been up to for the past decade. Paul and I we've been in children's media for 30 years. We have a company called Fable Vision, like Aesop's Fables, Fable Vision. And we have a studio in downtown Boston with 30 amazing human beings, artists, writers, programmers, educators, sound recording engineers, and we create positive media. We work with organizations, health organizations, media, Sesame Street, Jim Henson Productions, health organizations. So we help people tell their stories, but we also noticed that there were some things that needed to get funded that weren't necessarily, that there wasn't a budget for. And so we started ReynoldsTLC.org to do those projects. Dot Day is one of those things. International Dot Day, there are a lot of moving pieces. There's a website, there's a database, there are resources. So we actually have a staff that actually prepares all year round for International Dot Day, and also gets us through Dot Day. And of course, Dot Day has become Dot Week and Dot Month. And, I mean, some schools it's all year long, and we also we help fund the projects. We have micro grants that we give out to teachers in honor of a great educator we worked with, Bill Norris. So we have the Bill Norris Fund, and we people can request money for small projects. And as time goes on, we'll probably be funding bigger projects. But Reynolds TLC, we love that name. It's teaching, learning, and creativity. But it's the TLC is reminds us that teachers, especially our kids, need TLC, but our teachers need TLC. Our teachers need to be taken care of. We need to do that from Washington, D.C. down. We need, when it comes to funding, we as a country have to decide that education isn't just kind of important or very important. It's essential. It is up there with water and health to me and to Paul. And so we also have been using our voices to advocate for better funding for teachers. And but we can also, so that's on a big level, but just in a local level, just appreciating teachers, letting them know. It's like our frontline first responders, nurses and doctors. During the pandemic, we realized, like, wow, they do an amazing job every day, and it got really, really hard. Well, it got really, really hard for educators too. And there were a lot of movements to say thank you to doctors and nurses, although we need to keep that up because it's kind of waning, as COVID wanes. People are forgetting to say thank you. But that little simple thank you, and you could do it through, send some flowers to the school. You could drop off some, some nice, some coffee in Danish. You could do it just with a letter, just a little letter, say, you're amazing. We love you.
Yeah.
And so just reminding everybody out there, make sure you thank your teacher, and also thank your teachers who may be retired, who changed your life. You probably can think of, I'm sure everybody out there, in fact, both of you probably remember your favorite teacher. Do you remember, is there a teacher that pops to mind?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
See,
Definitely.
right away.
Definitely. Yes.
It's such a good point. We take them for granted. We really do. And it's funny because we just had an event where we gave out awards through the company that we work for, ClassLink. And one of the recipients said, I am so thrilled with this because I was getting so discouraged because I feel like I'm doing the same things over and over and no one recognizes, and I don't know if it's for any good. And it just rejuvenated. I mean, it really made all the difference in the world. And we didn't even recognize that it would do that. Just the inspiration that it could give, that rejuvenation and motivation back. Because they do, and we all do. We all need to hear that we're doing something of worth and that it matters and people notice, and we all need to be seen, heard, and valued. And it's we know to do it for students in the classroom, but you're right, absolutely, we need to do it for our teachers as well. 100%. 100%.
Paul and I created a very short animated film. If you do a search for it, it's called Keepers of the Flame. So if you write Reynolds, Keepers of the Flame, Fable Vision, you will, our studio's Fable Vision did the animation, I did the art, Paul wrote the beautiful poetic words, and it's a big thank you to teachers and a reminder of what they do for us. And there's National Teacher Appreciation Day, but we think that every day should be National Appreciation Day. So, but that film might be very handy, and just because it popped into my head, another fun film that we created. Again, this is this was not a client. This was just us saying we need to put this out there. It's called The Testing Camera. And it's a little story I wrote. It is not a book, but it's a film. So it's a short animated film, about 5 minutes. And it shows a little girl in school, and art class is canceled. Why is it canceled? Because it's testing day. And you see her in this long line, and she's going into the testing room. And when she goes inside, there's this gigantic camera, very foreboding camera with a big lens and it's like a robot, it's no human being. And it takes 3 photographs of her. And so then you see her at home a couple of weeks later, and the testing results come back, and the dad pulls out the photographs. And of course it's kind of like when you get your photograph taken at the DMV or Costco or BJ's. Yeah. It's a distorted picture, right? So she's like wincing, and she's and so the little girl says, who is that? And the dad smiles and pulls out his wallet and shows her the photographs, and he said of himself, and she says, well, who's that? And he's like, exactly, right? And so he said, do you know what? I know that you have this amazing spirit. You are an amazing dancer. You're kind to people. And the film just reminds us all that testing, right, especially high stakes, standardized testing, is an artificial snapshot of our kids. Because some kids test well, some kids completely get flummoxed and they're sweating, and their brain literally cannot process, and they get labeled, right, that they're slow, they're not smart. And that can affect someone's journey. And I wanted to remind people that, we need creative assessment. I do think assessment is good. It's like, is any of this interesting? Anything? And then if it's interesting, let's respond to it. So you do need to assess whether or not, is a kid getting it? And then why aren't they getting it? It's okay to say, it's not really my cup of tea.
Yeah.
We don't really, right? We don't have a creative enough system to say, is it your cup of tea? Because if it isn't, again, only so many minutes in a day, let's move on to something that you're really passionate about, and teach kids that you do have to find your passion, and you could spend all day. I mean, if you discovered a kid wanted to build rockets, right? There wouldn't be enough hours in a school day to, build that rocket, to understand about propulsion and the history of flight and, the nutrition on board of rocket ship. The whole school could be a rocket school.
Right. Yes.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's just, we need to, not every student is going to find mastery in every subject, right? So we do need to fuel what their passions are so that they don't, get discouraged, and just keep going along what makes them proud and what they can do and what interests them. So
you're right, Jamie. It's this myth of sort of mastery and everything. It's a very heavy burden, and there are a few people like Leonardo da Vinci. He kind of was good at a lot of like a lot of things, but there aren't that many people that are great at everything. And I actually think there's this divine plan that we don't know everything, because if we all knew everything, we wouldn't need each other.
That's right.
So we need you, and I need you, and I need you, and I need you, and together, we're going to make this thing work. And I think that's an important lesson for kids to realize. Like, they don't have to solve every single problem. You just have to kind of know, like, find your network and be able to know when to call in Jamie, when to call in Jenny, when to call Paul, and then and you can also learn. We can learn as we go along. It's also, that's the other thing too, is we sort of compress learning into the this 12-year package. It's a lifelong package. You're actually signed up for lifelong learning, and it can happen anytime, anywhere, at any year. Our mother, Hazel. Hi, Hazel. Hazel is still learning. She's reading. She's a voracious reader and amazing storyteller. And at age 97, by the way, a year older than the Queen.
That's fabulous. Well, I wanted to tell you, Peter, you were speaking of age and learning, and I wanted to tell you that just thinking about you being on the show inspired me. So I had wanted to take an online painting course. I love to doodle and do that kind of thing. So awesome. I turned it into Dot Day.
Oh my gosh.
I just had so much fun with it.
That is I love it. That is awesome.
What I loved about it was creativity, and it was courage to do it, but it was also that collaboration with somebody new that I didn't even know. So I just took it online, and you inspired me. So I just wanted to say,
Fantastic.
It's not just kids.
Absolutely. It's definitely not just, it's not just kids. We all have to recharge our creative batteries. And I always say, whether you're a teacher or you're a parent, if we want your kids to be creative, you kind of have to show them what it looks like, right? And creativity is connected to bravery, right? You have to be brave to fill that blank. You took that blank page and you splashed some bright colors and some words. And so we also, if we want our kids to be brave, we have to show them what that looks like. So bravo for your bravery and adding more color to this world.
I love color. Yes, but it also reduces a little stress in your life.
Absolutely. Well, the arts do heal, and they're, again, whether it's dance or music or listening to music or looking at art, your blood pressure will drop. Your brain will open up in new ways. instead of being busy trying to solve problems, relax and let that creativity flow. And as I say, right, you can make the art, you can also enjoy the art. Some of us love museums, by the way, big fan of museums. Find a museum near you. I illustrated a book by Susan Verde called The Museum. If you haven't read it, it's lovely. It's a little girl romping through a museum, and every piece of art makes her feel a different emotion. So fans of social emotional learning will really dig this book. It's called The Museum, published by Abrams. And Susan Verde, who does the I Am series, I Am Yoga, I Am Human, I Am Peace, I Am Love. We have our 7th book coming out in September called I Am Me, a book of authenticity. And that's a really lovely, that'll be there, I think, our last of the I Am series. Although Susan is, she can't stop writing. So I do love collaborating with people like my twin brother. We did a series called Sydney and Simon. It's a steam-powered adventure of these two fraternal twin mice who love to use. Yeah, they use their creativity to solve problems, and then also a story called Going Places, which is all about thinking outside of the box, and also collaborating, which is kind of like what you guys. That's actually your story. There should be a picture of you two riding this Going Places airplane on the cover of, because that's really what you guys are doing.
Yeah,
right, collaborating, thinking outside of the box, and also inspiring people, to go places, go good places.
Yeah, and share messages like you. I mean, just in this podcast alone, so many life lessons, nuggets of life lessons that you've shared. And it made me think of, all of your books. Do you ever have them? I feel like they can come in little bundles so that they can be part of, curriculum with social emotional learning.
Yes,
creativity.
That's what I'm thinking.
Do you do that?
Somebody said to me somewhere along the journey, they said, I feel like your books are like little puzzle pieces that are snapping together to form this bigger, this big picture. Actually, I think Liza Baker from Scholastic, and she said, we at Scholastic really get what you're doing. You're not making these individual stories. You're creating this sort of this toolkit, right? Teachers. So, and I like to think that I'm helping teachers start these conversations. Actually, Paul and I like to say that, right, great teachers know how not just to read a book, but to activate a book. So activating a book is like, wow, I know exactly the right question to ask, right? Right, springboard. It might inspire a conversation, might inspire an activity. In fact, this just happened to be kind of handy here. This is a little poster of some of my books. They're not all of them, but it shows the different themes, right? So the dot is about bravery, ish is about confidence, say color is about creative problem solving, the word collect joy of words, the North Star is the theme of potential, I am here, empathy, BU is individuality, so few of me is balance, say something is the power of voice, resilience is the theme of Happy Dreamer, patience for Rose's Garden. The joy of music is celebrated in Playing from the Heart. And then Our Table, which is one of my latest ones, is about connection, but human connection. And it's a little fable about a table, a family's dining room table that begins to shrink. And the more that they are on their devices and not connected with each other, the faster their family table shrinks. And only Violet, the little girl in the family, notices that the family's table actually disappears. And she has to rebuild the table, bring her family back together again, and realize that the best kind of connectivity is the human kind.
Yes.
That's incredible. Oh my gosh.
Peter, I'm looking at this and my daughter is a school counselor and I'm thinking, there are your classroom lessons for the entire year.
Oh, absolutely.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
It's it.
I went into a school in Boston, in Dorchester, and every wing was celebrating a different one of my books, and it was amazing to see all the student artwork and their writing, and it was like, oh, that book, and then there's this book and that book, and I thought maybe I should start my own school.
Yeah, sounds like it. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, between your production company, now there's a Broadway show coming out. There's, all of these different facets. It just makes sense. Have your own school. And you said that you are actually in the town that started the first.
Well, right. That's interesting. I hadn't connected those dots.
There's
That's
those
a
dots.
good
Yeah.
inspiration. What Paul and I, the other dream that we have is that we would love to get, 20 acres, 30 acres, and build a teacher retreat center that would have little houses, right? Tiny houses, little creativity cottages, and have a big, great house that has a long dining room table and a big kitchen, and that people could come together, cook, and then share stories around that table. But then also retreat to the little creativity cottages, which would be stockpiled with picture books and art supplies and poetry and
Sign
and
us
then
up.
have
And Twizzlers.
right? And Twizzlers, absolutely Twizzlers, and have and then be able to sponsor teachers, to say thank you. Maybe there's a teacher that's been through a tough time, or a teacher who's done this amazing job, for so long, and you're like, how do we thank them? And then be able to fund them to hang out. So I actually drew this campus out, and that's one of my techniques, right? If you want to get something started, just document it somehow, show someone, and every time you talk about it, write about it, draw, it becomes more and more real. So if I'm able to show this drawing, that maybe Bill Gates is watching, and he can he could help us fund the Creativity Campus.
I love it. It has to happen. It has to happen. But I think you have the key to, when you have a dream, when you have an idea, share it with others, document it, and then that snowball happens, just like you said. And look at all that you have created. So I think you're true testament between the two, you and your brother.
It is, broadcasting out the mission, which I encourage everybody listening. You've got your own mission, whether it's in your house or your classroom or your community. You have a mission, right? And use technology. Technology is a good thing in balance, that we can scale out the messages that will help the planet, right? It can help your house, your town, your community, your country, the world. And so we actually have all of these amazing tools at our fingertips now that we did not have 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And so use those tools, but combine it with your creativity and your passion, your mission. And together, we are going to move this world to a better place.
I love it. I love it. Oh my gosh.
Such great inspiration.
Thank you so much. And so all of these resources we are going to be sharing with our podcast here. There's been so much. And all in preparation.
Here's my playlist of things I want to look up that he's done.
Okay, there you go.
That is awesome. That's awesome. Well, if you visit our websites, because there are a few of them, there's Stablevision, there's reynoldstlc.org, there's international.day.org. There's just a tremendous wealth of resources for teachers. And also it's fun to show students like, wow, Fablevision Studios is a really creative place where human beings are working together. And it's like just a wonderful example of like, wouldn't you love to have a career where it's joyful and you have mission fueled human beings around you? You have that choice. And if you actively participate in carving your own journey, it will definitely become more interesting than if it just happens, right? Because there's a little conveyor belt that kind of brings us along and it dumps us out. And if you haven't done your thinking, right, other people do your thinking for you, and you may end up in a job that you wake up 30 years later saying, what am I doing?
Right.
And where did the 30 years go? So that's why we try to encourage this kind of creative dreaming and thinking in preschool, kindergarten, but also in assisted living and senior centers, because learning is definitely a lifetime journey. So thank you both for your for all the work you do, and for connecting the dots with me and with my twin busy brother, Paul. And the dots are not just connected, they are welded now. And so let's do this again.
Oh, we will.
All right.
We will have you back. I'm looking forward to all that's to come in this year of the 20th year celebration.
Right.
So we will sharing this and listening in on where we can get involved in some more. And thank you, Paul. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Paul. Get over here, Paul. Yeah. Very welcome. Busy guy.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You're exploding over there.
I'm
Get
going
one
to
more.
get back to
Getting
my
a picture.
duty. Oh,
Got it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
All right.
So,
All
yeah,
right. Thank you.
I have 4 books to finish in my studio. So this time next year, I'll be able to show you what these 4 books are.
All right.
We're going to
And,
hold you to it.
There's some really cool things coming along. So excited
Have
to share
no
that
doubt.
with you. But got to go finish them. So
Yes.
thank you
All
both.
right.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we love hearing from you. We love hearing from the audience. So definitely give us a shout out on social media or track us down. Peter at peterhreynolds.com. You can send me an email, and Paul too. And we love hearing what you're doing, your innovations, your breakthroughs, your stories, and we are cheering you on.
Oh,
Wonderful.
thank you so
Wonderful.
much.
Thank
Such
you.
an inspiration. Yes.
Thank you both.
Thank you for listening. And if you would like to stay linked up, be sure to follow us on Apple and Spotify and subscribe to us on YouTube.